Oh, hey, Tammy, thank you so much for coming on live with me today because I really wanted to talk about the episode that we recorded for the Spirit Experience podcast. And that went live last week. There's a link in the bio for anybody who wants to see this, a brand new podcast. Tammy was my first guest. Later today, the second episode will go up with another guest. And Tammy had some incredible things to say about her practice. And the Spirit Experience podcast is really about spiritual practice for healing and happiness, and whatever that looks like for people. And so, Tammy, I think the first thing, because one of the things I learned early on in my spiritual journey when I was trying to connect with my son was that there's these processes, there's these practices, numerology, tarot, meditation, all these different practices. And what I learned was that they are tools to help the process. And so I would love for you to share, what is numerology?
Okay. So I have my little spiel that I always say. So people are probably really used to me saying it, but it's okay. So numerology is the study of numbers and how they apply to your life. The idea behind it is that we reincarnate many times, and we do that because we're trying to learn all the aspects of what it is to be human. So because we are soul beings and we are coming into a body and having a life here, we're trying to learn what that is. And so we come back many times. Like, this is all based in the idea of reincarnation. So we come back many times, and every time we come back with a whole set of things that we're working on learning, you know, because we want to eventually complete this entire chart of learning. We want to learn every different aspect of what it is to be human. And so we have this chart that we kind of work on a little bit at a time in every life. And so in every life, you're working on different things. And basically your birthday is actually the recording of that chart. You know, like, if you just put your birthday into a numerology chart, you can see what your plan is for this time. So that's basically what I do. My goal in numerology is always to reawaken people back to their purpose, back to who they are and why they're here and what they're meant to do. I want to kind of bring them back to life in a way. That's always my goal, you know, so.
Oh, that's beautiful. And yes, we talked about that on the podcast as well. And I think, too, one of the things that you have said is that you combine numerology with life coaching, and that this process that you have has really, it helps you get results for people in their life really quickly. Can you talk about the combination and the practice of that?
Yeah, so I offer a few different types of coaching packages, and basically it depends on what type of you're focusing on, whether you're focusing on yourself or your relationship, like your romantic relationship usually, or if you're focusing on learning more about your family, you know, like, and your ancestry and things like that. So we'll go into a coaching session, the very first one, if anyone would ever start working with me, we go into the first one and we literally just look at your chart, and I give you a full reading, and we look at what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you're struggling with. And then we kind of map out a plan based on that, you know, and that's what we work on during our time together. I find that this is the best way, for me at least, to practice life coaching, because I'm actually looking at the core of who you are, at the truth of what you're going through. Sometimes the truth that you can't see, you know, like a lot of times actually there's things in your chart that you just don't know that you're struggling with. And then as soon as I bring those to the surface and I say, oh, well, this is what's going on, then we can actually hone into that, you know, and we can actually discover ways to break through those barriers based on what your strengths are that you came with, you know. So yeah, so it's really impactful, really quick moving, where like people have real breakthroughs really quickly. And it's like if you look at people when they start with me and when they end with me, they look different even, you know, because their life really does transform in that amount of time, you know. So, and when I do it with relationships, I will look at your chart next to your husband or your significant other or whatever, and I will say, well, this is what you both are looking for. This is what you're getting. This is what he's getting. This is what you need. This is what he needs, you know, and this is how you give it to each other. Like, this is how you come back together. And this is how this person operates. And this is how this person operates. So that it's like people don't really know how they operate. Like, they don't really understand their own operation. But when you actually dig into their numbers and you say, oh, well, this person has trouble expressing their feelings, you know, like a lot of men, they have trouble expressing what they really feel. So they kind of act out because they don't know how to say it, you know. And if the woman knew that, she could actually honor that in him and help him with a different kind of expression, you know, like a lot of times when a man can't express his words, he can express by gifts, or he can express, like if he's in a vulnerable situation, like an intimate situation, he'll be able to express his truth then, you know. And if you understand that about him, it really helps. One of the things that really helps me in my relationship is that my boyfriend compartmentalizes. A lot of people do that, actually, and it's actually a higher form of spiritual operation, which I didn't realize until I really dove into it. He compartmentalizes, and so he likes to keep all of the parts of his life separate. And I used to mistake that by him not wanting me in his life. But now I understand that that's actually how he keeps his life balanced, and it has nothing to do with wanting me or not. It's the way that he actually functions at his best. And when I honor that, it gave us a whole new level of respect and commitment for each other, you know, and it made me feel a lot less insecure, you know. So, but I help people with that all the time, you know, just reconnecting and learning how to give their partners what they actually need and want, and meet those needs in the ways that people actually need them, not in the ways that you're guessing, you know. So that's why numerology helps, you know. So.
Hey, you know, years ago, I had an astrology reading from the sister-in-law of a man I was dating. And she very much laid it out for me that it wasn't going to work out. And you know, being stubborn and not really getting it, you know, I didn't let go of that relationship for a long time. But what's the difference between astrology and numerology?
So I don't know much about astrology at all. They are like very, very related and they intertwine. But I've never really studied astrology. So for me, it's like numerology is so deep and so complicated that it's enough for now, you know, at least for the last 19 years. But the main difference is just in the way that you're deciphering someone, you know, like when you're looking at in the way that you're deciphering someone, you know, and their patterns and things. It's like you're just looking at a different aspect of their design. It's just like, you know, human design. It's just like, you know, all palm reading, you know, all the different ways that you can learn about people. It's just another form, another modality to do that, you know. It's just looking from another angle, really. You know, they're all the same thing, and all of this work is really the same thing, you know. We're just trying to learn how to navigate a really hard world, you know.
Yeah, I do tell. You know, one of the things that we talked about too was not so much reincarnation on the podcast. We really go deep into that. We can go a little deeper here, but one of the things, you did have a near-death experience, and you know, saw the other side of it. And one of the things that you began to understand was what's real. I mean, that's what you started questioning, because it seems so real over there, and this doesn't come even close to that.
Yeah.
And I love the sentiment that you really came away from, is that love is the only thing that's real, because it's really the only thing that we get to take with us. I would love to have you share a little bit more about that.
Okay. What's funny to me is that most of my life I thought love is not tangible. You know, like I always thought like you can't hold it, you can't build anything with it, you can't see it, you can't touch it, all these things, okay? And like the funniest lesson I think I've ever had, the most ironic maybe, is that like love is actually the only thing that exists. You know, like it's the only real solid thing that we take with us, because nothing here is solid. You know, like nothing is actually tangible. It just appears that way, you know. But love is actually real, because you can't take anything else when you go. You know, like you get to store the love in your heart, or maybe in your soul. I don't know where we store it, but that love actually becomes this existing being almost that comes with you. Like not a being, but this feeling of love is what you get to keep, you know. And so anyway, so I'll back up. So when I had my near-death experience, I technically did not go to the other side. I stayed right in my room, and there was an angel with me, and or at least I thought it was an angel. I don't know who she is. I just know that I didn't even see her. I just know that it was the most beautiful voice I've ever heard in my life, and it wasn't a voice. It wasn't even sound. It was telepathy, and it wasn't even words. It was a song. It sounded like a song. But I understood it. I understood everything that she was saying, so I kind of like woke up, and I was in the air, and I was just like a few feet above my bed, and I could see my boyfriend in the bed, and I could see myself in the bed, and I could see that I was still in my dark room, you know, and all I heard was, come on, it's time to go now. It's time to go now. And it was like the most beautiful way to hear it too. And I was like, okay, like where are we going? You know, like I'm always up for an adventure, you know, but, and I was just like, okay. And as I'm like kind of rising a little bit, you know, I'm rising very slowly. She's telling me all of these things like, you know, it's all going to be okay now. There's not going to be any more pain. Everyone's going to be all right. You know, like, don't worry. Everything's okay. And as I'm going up, I'm going, oh shit, I'm dying. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm dying, you know? And I was like, no, I can't die. I can't die. And I would like go back down, and then she would rise me up again slowly. And it was like, she was convincing me it's okay to come, you know? And we went through that a few times. And then basically she was like, you know, don't worry. Like I was worried because I had a baby at the time, and I had a 5-year-old, and she was 4 or 5. I was worried about leaving my children, you know, like I was worried about leaving the baby, especially because I was with an abusive boyfriend. He's actually the reason that I had the near-death experience. And so I was scared if I left her, you know, that she wouldn't be okay. And that was my biggest fear in leaving, because she was only like, I think she was 10 months old at the time. And I was like, I don't think everyone's going to be okay. I can't leave, you know? And then this movie screen started, and it was like these flashes of my life, like not my life. It was my family, you know, like first it was like my dad. It was like a weird screen that kind of like moved and came forward. And it was like, I would see my dad where he was now and where he would be if I left. And it was like, see, your dad's going to be okay. And then my mom would come, and it's like, your mom's going to be okay. And your daughter's going to be okay. And they would show me all of them. And I was getting relieved. I was like, okay, you know, like everyone's going to be okay. This is the best feeling I've ever felt, because it was also enormous love that I felt, that I was held in. And then, you know, she was telling me, like, it wasn't really words, so it's hard to define it all, but she was basically telling me the whole time, there's not going to be any more pain. And everybody knows that this was the plan, that this was, you know, basically an exit point for me, you know, and that it's okay if you leave because everybody signed up for this contract too, you know, so they all know, they have a plan in progress. You know, if this happens, they're going to go with that plan. If this doesn't happen, they're going to go with the other plan, you know, and it was like so obvious and it all made sense to me at the time. But I still was like, I couldn't live with that. That was my thing, was I could not knowingly leave her with an abusive man. That was really what it was. And so I ultimately decided to come back, and the angel or whoever she was, probably my main spirit guide, I have no idea. But she finally said, well, it's going to be really, really, really hard, you know, and I did. I had a really long recovery, you know. But when I came back, what was so striking, the very first thing that was striking, you know, was that you don't realize how much pain you have in your body until you come out of it without any pain and you come back in it. I had no idea that you have enormous pain all over your body, you know, that you learn to live with. That was very striking to me because I've never heard anybody talk about that, you know. And I was only in my 20s. I was like 23 or something, you know. So it's not like I was like old and beat up already, you know. And so that, and then the other thing was I had such a hard time feeling like life was real after that. Like, because where I went was so very real. Like, it was so very obvious to me that this is an illusion and that was real. And so when I came back, I went, none of this is real. This is not real. This is like a play, you know, like I'm playing Tammy, you're playing Shawl, you know, and I don't understand that. Like, I still to this day question that a lot, like how I feel about that, you know. I believe it, but I question it. So that leads me to what we were talking about before, is that so I went on this quest, you know, years after that, where I searched for what was real in the world. I would walk around every day and I would look at things and people and whatever, and I would say, is that real? No. Is that real? No. And I couldn't find anything that was real, you know, because it's like, okay, like say you get a really big bill, like from the IRS, you know, and you're so scared that you could lose your house or you could lose everything. But the truth is that that's not real. It's not really like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, I guess. But the things in our everyday life seem very real. But if you had a bird's eye view of your life, you would know that all these little things don't really equal anything. They don't add up to anything. They don't really change the grand scheme of things usually. Most things in our life that we worry about, they're very, very small. And so what I did was I was like, okay, well, the only thing that I believe is real is love, because that's the only thing that I know for sure I can take with me, because I couldn't take anything else with me. Like, you don't take your house, you don't take your kids, you don't take your dogs, you don't take all the things that you have, you know. The literal only thing that you take is whatever you can bring. Like, you can't bring anything. It's just you and whatever feelings or memories you had, you know, I guess. But the love is what you take with you. And whenever you have like visitations from people on the other side, that's all you feel from them is the love that they have for you. Like none of the things that you ever thought about mattered, you know. Like, and a good example is when my ex died, he would come back and I would be so mad at him. I'd be like, oh, you left us and you're terrible and all this crap, you know. And I was just so mad at him for leaving the earth, basically, and I couldn't contain that. And he would go, would you calm down, you know, like because I can communicate. And he would say, stop it. We have work to do. Like, please stop it. Like, this is all nonsense. None of that matters, you know? And as soon as I would stop all the baby game type stuff, you know, like the human feelings of like regret and anger and sadness and all the stuff, then he would actually get a hold of me and he would start teaching me things, you know, like he would start taking me places in my dreams, and he would like show me things that I could do with my business and I could do with my life. And he started actually helping me form a path in my life, where before that I was so clouded by all my feelings around it, you know. But yeah, so anyway, that taught me that love is the only thing that's real, you know, because you don't have all these feelings there. You don't have all these things that get in the way and all of these weird issues. Like, you just, none of that really, it equals anything, you know, but love does. Love equals something. Love is also really strong, you know, like it's a strong force where it's like, it's almost equal to hate. When somebody hates, it's really, really big, you know, and when somebody loves, it's really, really big, you know, and a lot of the other emotions don't really carry like that, you know. So, I don't know. I'm not explaining it well, but like love.
Great. Because, and you bring something up there too. I'm someone who lost a child. I've never had a near-death experience. I've never seen the other side. But when you lose a child, if you are looking for that spiritual connection, losing a child, I mean, it just slams you right up against that veil between here and there. And one of the things that I learned very early on is so much of this does not matter, you know, and make these big deals out of just little things. And I know, you know, for a while, I would be resentful of people who would whine and cry and moan about stupid, you know, in my mind, stupid stuff. Now, I did have an epiphany, you know, a few years after Levi passed, that, you know, what I was carrying wasn't theirs to carry. And so, you know, whatever issues or problems and things they were working on, that it was okay that they had those feelings about it, you know, even though it seemed so trite and small in comparison to what was going on with me. So I think it's really interesting that you put it in the context of when you can look at all your lives from a bird's eye view, and you can see so much of this stuff is just noise, you know. It's not things that really move you forward and heal, you know.
Yeah. I used to say that to one of my friends. It was very dramatical, and I would say, you know, if you could see from above. Oh, I'm having like a lot of feedback. Let me unplug it. Is that better?
Maybe the computer on too.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. My phone was also plugged in. So okay. I think it's stable again. I don't think you can see me, but I think it's stable again. Okay. Anyway, I would tell one of my friends, I would say, you know, he used to get really caught up in a lot of drama. And I would say, you know, if you could be above and you could see your whole timeline, like you could see the beginning and the end, you would realize that most of these moments don't matter, you know? And like a lot of the stuff that you're getting upset about won't matter in a week. It won't matter in a month. It won't matter in a year, you know? If you could learn that now in that moment, it wouldn't bother you so much, you know? Like if you could be
right, and then you could experience that moment differently.
Yeah. If you could stand in the moment right now when, you know, say your washer breaks or something, you can know that, like, you know, you'll have another one in a month. Who cares? You know, like you'll have the money will come. It always does, you know. If you could just trust that, like, the end of the world is not happening every time you have a problem, you could just live in your life better, you know, like you could walk through your day calmer, you know, and you could realize that it's not all such a big deal. It really isn't. And one of the things that that angel told me that was so, just stayed with me forever is, you can't do it wrong. She kept saying that. She kept saying, you can't do it wrong. There's nothing that you can do wrong. You're not being measured here the way you think you are. I always thought that there was this man in the sky somewhere that was like a judge, and he was gonna, like, as soon as I died, I was gonna have to go in front of him, and I was gonna be this big, and he was gonna slam down his thing and his gavel, and he was gonna say, "You're terrible because of all these reasons. Look at my list," and man, was I wrong. That's not true. That doesn't happen. What happens actually is that you go and you face your higher self, and you say, did I do what I planned on doing, or would I like to come back and try a little bit more? That was it. The entire thing was up to me. There was nobody bringing me home. There was nobody saying I had to go. She said, it's all up to you. It always was. It was always up to you, And I will tell you, that is probably the most freeing thing that came from my near-death experience, was that I get to choose to be here or not. Not that you can just go, oh, I want to die, and you just die, but the fact that I made the choice to come here, and I also made the choice to stay here, that gave me a power that I never had before, because I used to always feel like I was being held here against my will, and I always used to fight it. I would be like, I don't know who's holding me here, but I don't want to be here. It's too hard. And then I realized it was up to me, and it was all my choice. And then I went, oh, well, then what do I want to do with this? Because now there's possibilities. Now it's up to me, and I guess what I want to say, I also want to say something about, losing people. When you lose the people that mean the most to you, okay, that is, there's some people that when they die, you're like, oh, thank God they're out of their misery, oh, I'm so happy that they're going to the other side, they're going back home, or wherever they go, even if you don't have a concept of that. And then there's other people that die that when they go, you are gutted, and you are raw, and you are broken, and you can't bring your pieces back together no matter what you do. Those are the biggest gifts you can possibly have in this life. That is one of the biggest gifts in the entire world that you can ever experience, because you are going to grow 100 times faster and more than you ever were going to if that didn't happen, and that person's love is going to magnify the feelings of love in your body to a degree that you don't even know exists until they leave. I just, it's so hard to say you're better because you went through it, because that's so awful to say,
It's
I had a best friend
put into here, and as a mother who loses a child, it's something that's very hard to hear. There's a lot of things that people say that are hard to hear, but the one thing that and you said it in the podcast too, and I did have a little bit of a visceral reaction to it. Even though I know it to be true, I know what has happened for me. I know the spiritual path that has opened up for me because of the way that I walk with Levi now. I lost my train of thought. But when he passed, I was, I mean, gutted. It was bad. But I also was flooded with love for him, in a way that was different, in that it wasn't just my love for him, but his love for the world, his love for his friends, his love for his people, his love for everything. And even at his memorial, I had all these different stations with his things that, he loved his shoes, he loved his art, he loved all these things. And I encouraged his people to, and when I say his people, I mean the tribe that he created here, even outside of his blood family. I encouraged them to take the things that meant something to them, because I was just, I was just caught up in how much love it was, and then the other thing that I did when it was super hard days, where I didn't know I'd miss another second. I would envision that moment that he experienced the love from the other side, where he was brought into it. And I would just keep envisioning it, the joy that he must have felt in that moment. And it would get me through, another minute, another hour, that kind of thing. And I used it a lot in the beginning because it really, when it's all said and done, it's about the love.
Yeah. Well, so I think what's, what I'm curious about, how often do you surround yourself in that love? Like, how often do you allow yourself to feel that? Like you imagine what he felt like when he walked into the light and when he was surrounded in that love. Why can't you do that for you? Like right now?
I'm not saying I don't.
Yeah.
And I think that people, that's part of the spiritual practice, is to learn how to accept that love.
Yeah.
And it took a spiritually transformative experience for me in this to really be able to come out of the dark and heavy of it, And so I think that if you put love into your spiritual practice every day, when you really begin to connect with spirit and understand the love that's coming for you, the support that's coming for you, and allow yourself that, it does change how you walk through this world, and it does change how you walk through grief. And I'm in a really good place. I feel that connection, and that I think is really important for people.
Yeah, well, and I think something that a lot of people don't really understand is that your loved one can't reach you when you're in grief. Like, they can't lower their vibration low enough to meet you so that you can feel them so strongly, so and a perfect example of this is like anytime that you go to a wedding or a baby shower or a time when people gather that all loved that person, a lot of times you'll see a balloon float up or something, or you'll know that person's there somehow. A lot of times you'll have a group experience where they're like, oh, grandpa was here, I could tell, because something happened and everyone knew that would be grandpa, The reason why that happens is because when you're in a state of joy, your vibration is much higher. And so when there's a whole bunch of people in that state of joy, they can reach you, they can join you, they can show you that they're there. When you're in a state of grief and your vibration's very low, they have to lower their vibration so much to reach you that it's barely enough to send you a penny or a flower or something. When your vibration is higher, they can actually speak to you, and they can actually visit you in your dreams, and they can actually send you very valid messages that you can, they're more like they're more solid, you'll know it more. The thing is, and this is what they always tell you when they visit you in visitation dreams and things, they always say, when you think of me, think of the best day, think of me smiling, think of me on the days that we were happy together, think of singing and dancing and jumping, because that's how they can actually meet, so I always tell people, go to the prettiest place you can think of, or some place that you know, where the sun is shining and the water is going by you and whatever. And think of them then. You know, think of them in that beautiful place and think of them filled with joy and imagine them running down the beach in front of you, you know, and imagine them laughing and see them that way. They will join you. You know, you will feel them join you. If you are sitting on that beach and you are crying, they're still holding you, but you can't tell because they can't show you the way that they can when you're in joy. So it's really important to cross that level, you know. But that's really, really important, you know.
When we're talking about, you know, especially a parent losing a child, I'm so filled with gratitude that Levi was able to reach us in so many ways, so deeply, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that continued to this day. And there were times when I would be sinking and, you know, maybe it's 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road since he transitioned, and I could feel myself going, and out of the blue, I would get a message, something that I had been asking Levi from one of his friends, and not always the same one, you know. So it's been very powerful for me. And I think, you know, maybe it is that I have focused on the love that he felt in this world, that he felt for this world, and that he's experiencing now, you know. So for me, it has really been, even in my darkest moments, even in, you know, I mean, I used to have to go places with a wet washcloth to keep scrubbing my face down because you'd cry so much. But even through all of that, I, you know, focusing on the love that he was here in this world absolutely took me down a different path than I've seen, you know, people who don't try to get that spiritual connection, you know, with their child.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you ever saw that kind of shuts down their life after they lose someone, they don't have a lot of messages coming through that they can see, you know, and they tend to feel very far away from their love, you know, and the ones that embrace all of the joy, it seems like their loved one is dancing right around them all the time, you know. So there's something to be said about that, you know. You know, there just is, you know, because when your vibration is high, that is when you are truly connecting to all of that kind of energy, you know, and that's where you want to be, you know.
And I think that you have to make that decision too. I know I've talked with a lot of moms who want that connection with their child, but they're in a state where they don't really believe that it can happen. It's like they're in a state of where they're hoping it could happen and they want it to happen, but they are not able to get to that point where they believe it can happen. And, you know, that's something I mean, I want every parent who's ever lost a child to ever experience, that their child is absolutely alive still, you know. We've got way off the numerology path, but it's all part of it.
That's okay. The thing
I did want to go back, though, Tami, I did want to go back to the charts. I know we don't have a lot more time left, but the charts where you know, look at lifetimes from above and look at, you know, the people in your life are working on the same thing as you. It's just coming from different directions. That was something that you talked about in our episode, and I thought that was very powerful because relationships can be very difficult. And when you see it from this point of view, it makes it a little easier to understand why people do what they do.
Yeah, I mean, one of my most favorite things is to map out an entire page and then look at, you know, the parents and the grandparents and the children, and, you know, look at all of their inner relationships and then look at all their relationships with each other. I'm actually doing that right now in my numerology class. We're in level 3, and they finally are to the point where we can map out all the charts like that. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. What is the most important thing is when you look, so I'll show you a whole page. Hang on. So this is a whole page of charts, okay? So when you look at this many charts at one time, you can see the pattern of the family. So like a family kind of like is a soul group who chose a mission together, basically. You know, like they chose to learn these things at the same time. They're all working on the same lesson. So basically they have like some plan of what they're doing, and then they're all kind of working on an aspect of that kind of learning. So like say they're all learning how to express their emotions, you know, so they're all going to have this one number, and then they're going to have numbers that kind of like, you know, change the focus of that number. So they'll have the main number, and then they'll have some other number that says, okay, so I'm working on this and I'm doing it this way, you know, and then the next person will have one that's this way and this way and this way. And it's kind of like a whole big picture you see. And it's not just one plan that they're working on. It's usually a couple, but it's all the same. You'll see like all 9s in a family, or you'll see all 3s or all 6s or all whatever. And what the reason is for that is that your mom is going to be working on it one way, your dad's going to be working on it another way, and then you're going to be working on it a different way. And so they're going to trigger you into learning it. You know, like usually your parents are working on the lesson that you're most interested in, you know, so like the thing that you're most interested in learning, they're going to have like magnified so that they are triggers for you because you spend a lot of time with them growing up. And so they will cause you to learn that lesson at an extreme level, good and bad, you know? And then your sister is going to be working on it a little bit different. Your brother's going to be working on it a little bit different. And so everybody's going to help you and hurt you to help you learn this thing that you're trying to learn, you know? And the only way that you...
Say that again, Tami. They're going to help you and hurt you.
Yes, they're going to help you and hurt you so that you can learn all of the things that you are meant to learn, that you're trying to learn, you know? And really the thing is, you don't see that until you look at all the charts together. You don't realize, so like, I never knew that there was this big grand master plan. I was told that at times, but I never understood it until I looked at all the charts on one page of my whole family, and I went, oh my goodness, we're all doing the same thing, you know? And like, so I looked at my numbers, and then I looked at my daughter's numbers, and then I looked at her father's numbers, and we match like the things that I have. So she has like a combination of both of us. So she has a little bit from me and a little bit from him. Then I have 2 other daughters with a different father, and I looked at my numbers, his numbers, and their numbers. So like they have a little bit of me, a little bit of him, and then a little bit of each other. And it's so crazy. And so my oldest daughter just had a baby a few months ago, and she said, well, you need to do his numbers. And I was like, okay. And so I did her numbers, her boyfriend's numbers, and the baby's numbers. And I said, so he has a sibling coming. And she's like, no, I'm not having any more babies. And I was like, but you are. So, and she goes, well, what if I adopt? I said, well, that's fine. But I showed her how he had parts of her and he had parts of his father, and he has some numbers that don't match anybody. So there must be a sibling coming, you know? And I said, that is how it works. You know, I can see that now, but I never could see that until I was looking at the whole picture, you know? And so I do this thing called Explore Your World, where we go 2 charts at a time for 6 weeks, and we do a whole page of charts. You know, sometimes we do a couple more than that. Sometimes we do a couple less, depending on how big your circle is. But like, people just understand their whole world after doing this. You know, like they learn about the relationships between their parents and why they work and why they don't work. They learn about their grandparents. They learn about their exes, you know. I've even done like the ex of somebody's boyfriend, you know, to see like why they work and why they didn't work and things. And it's fascinating, you know, it's really fascinating, like how people choose each other and how we are so obviously a plan, which is kind of freaks you out a little bit, you know, how it really is such a master plan that we've constructed, and we really do have soul agreements with other people. And it's very, very obvious when you look at it, you know, because you can see, you know, like say your uncle hurt you, it's like, well, that was the exact thing that you were trying to learn about, you know, and he hurt you in that exact way, you know. And then, you know, your cousin actually helped you with that same thing. And it's like, obviously he hurt you, she helped you, and then you understood the lesson, you know, and then you could complete this life the way you wanted, you know. So it's fascinating and mind-blowing and
yeah.
So it's really, so.
You know, I think if anybody who's on the call, Tami does teach how to do numerology, and she also does, you know, one-on-one work with people looking for coaching and numerology. And there's a link in the bio to the podcast, which will link you to all of her links if you click on it. So the episode with Tami LoPresti on the Spirit Experience podcast will have all those links. But you can also go to TamiLoPresti.com, TamiLoPresti, and check her out there. And Tami, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some more. You know, we had a great episode for the podcast, and but I thought people might enjoy actually being able to see you and hear from you.
Yeah.
And so
great. I'm sorry I had a lot of technical difficulties. I'm mostly so I don't even know how to use Instagram barely.
In a chart somewhere, right?
Yeah. At least we figured it out. That's all that matters, right?
Exactly. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. I will save this to the feed, and so if anybody wants to hear it again, it'll be there. And again, you can find the Spirit Experience podcast in my link in bio, and you can find Tami's episode in the link in bio. And again, Tami, thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.